Hey guys, this is Kevin. So basically, I'm running a business, an online business that basically gives out teachings and tutorials of how you can start your own online business. And today, I'm extremely excited. The reason why I'm excited is because I'm here with someone that she's probably helped more than hundreds of people. She's not only a group manager of one of the SFM communities of over 1,000 members, but as well, she's active in the community, helping out, teaching at the same time, and inspiring and making people feel comfortable in the community. And I'm benefiting from that a whole lot. I can tell you that for sure. So her name is Clara Carpenter. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. Am I? It's like
you did.
kind of, it was like in an American kind of way. I'm sorry though. I'm sorry for that. But first of all, Clara, thank you so much for coming out. Freeing up your time to come and speak with me. So first of all, how are you doing?
It's a pleasure. Thank you for that very elaborate introduction. It makes me feel cooler than I do. Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. That it's always the whole moderating team of that group. We're all about giving value to people and answering questions before they arise, when they arise, passing on what has helped us. I mean, I'm just at the beginning of my own journey. I've also benefited from so many people who have poured into me, who are ahead of me in this. So it's kind of just keep passing it on, and everyone resonates with other people also. So yeah.
So here's the thing. So you're saying that you just started at the beginning. For people that don't know, you give small description of who you are and your background before having started in the online moderating digital worlds and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, when I say the beginning, that I mean with that is my own online business journey. So I'm in the process of getting my stuff set up, my funnel, shooting my ad, and all that. Yeah. I've been part of the SFM community for over a year, so you can say, I'm not new to the community. I'm just starting my own stuff now. But so for me, I always kind of had the feeling that I probably wouldn't be working a normal job. I just couldn't, not because I felt I was, I don't know, special, but because I just didn't see myself in anything. I didn't see myself in an office. I didn't see myself like having a practice or something. I started college as like in vet school. I wanted to be a veterinarian. Oh, and really? I really loved it. Yes, I was over the moon when I got accepted. It was the best day of my life.
That's tough as well, right? It's pretty intense. I keep hearing how intense it is to kind of pass through the test and get into those schools, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was very happy when I got that letter. It was definitely a lot of a lot of emotion that went into that, and a lot of like just, it's something you work towards and then it happens and you're super happy. So, and I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew I would like cancel all my social life and all that for the next few years. But I would have been willing to do that, and I was doing that. But I came to the point where I just realized I was sacrificing all these things, but I didn't really know what for. I just didn't see where this was going to get me. And especially with vet school, lots of people start with having like a certain picture in their mind, and then as they progress through the studies, they realize, oh, it's actually, you can do much more with it than you thought, and then they often end up picking a different path than what they came in for. And so for me, it got to the point where I had a really good idea of what you need this education for, and I had to just be honest with myself and realize that none of those things were appealing to me in the long run. And when you have invested a few years of your life into that, I was basically faced with the decision: either I adjust myself to the path I was on and make myself fit into something that I didn't see myself aligned with right now, or I change the path. And that was super scary. That was the most difficult decision probably I have made in my life, because coming from a very academic background, you know, I was considering going into med school, like becoming a human doctor, and that was kind of the like my upbringing background, you know, where that I was coming from. So it wasn't a question of what to study. It wasn't a question of whether to go to university. It was a question of what for. And
Right.
yeah, it was just imagining myself not having a university degree. To me, it was imagining life without my left leg. It
Yeah.
was just nothing I would ever have thought I would have to think about.
Right. Right. Right.
But I'm so glad that I made that decision. So I decided to drop out of school.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yes, and I'm building my online business now. And it's so funny because all those skills I felt like, you know, I was throwing this away. I had this chance. I got one of the rare spots that so many people were fighting over. And
Hmm.
I wasn't even in a situation where I would have been kicked out. Like if you don't pass a certain number of exams, you get
Right.
kicked out and all that. It was just I really had a free choice, and it was really difficult. But to me, part of having a choice is actually using it in a free way also. So not because I
Right.
have the chance. It doesn't mean that I have to use it. It means that I have both opportunities and I get
Hmm.
to freely pick which one.
So
And
you, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I just, well, basically the online business was just it was gonna provide me with a lifestyle that was way
Hmm.
more aligned with how I wanted to live my life ultimately.
So that's interesting. When did you realize that after being accepted in vet school that the trajectory of what I think you would have imagined into that pathway wasn't being set, wasn't going to bring you the satisfaction that you thought it would have bring? At what point? When was it that you realized? Was it when that other option came, or was it more the conversations that you've had with friends and family, or kind of your vision in the future? Like, okay, I can't see myself in that 2-3 years from now. Like, that's not what I thought I was going to be. So when did that start? I mean, I'm just wondering, I'm just curious of like when that realization came.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think it came retrospectively, if
Mm.
that makes sense. So, I'm a very like gut
Yeah.
feeling person. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
I looking back, the first symptoms, if you want, were a bit over a year in, like in my third semester.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the moment actually. I was sitting at my desk. It was in the middle of the night, I don't know, 3 a.m. or something. I was studying for an anatomy exam. I had
Oh,
my pet
shit.
rats on my lap. They were super cute. And I was studying. I was sitting there and the thought hit me like, hey, if I'm doing this, I could do human medicine too. Because
Mm.
all my friends were all med students, and I
Right.
had not even considered doing that when I decided what to study. So it hit me like, oh, did I maybe miss something? And then what I ended up doing was I ended up deciding to switch. So I stopped vet school. I wanted to go to med school. I ended up taking a year off in between. I ended up then going back to vet school and then to realize, no, this is definitely not it. Um, but the beginning of that process, when I look back, it was the beginning of that feeling something is not in alignment. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I started studying straight out of high school, so I was really young to make that kind of life decision, as everyone is. Um, but yeah, it started like that for me. And
Okay.
now looking back, I'm like, yeah, that was the beginning of what has what has come to an end now a few years later.
Yeah, and the thought process of it and making the decisions of it and contemplating about it and whatnot.
Yeah,
I
and
see
just the
that.
feeling of like, how does it feel to make this decision for myself in my life? And that year, I had like about a year in between where I was not studying. I was like jobbing, you know, to stay afloat. But I was not officially like, I was still enrolled, but I wasn't actually studying. I was taking some time to recover.
No, of course. No, I get that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
that was an amazing time. Like I just felt, it just felt so good. Looking back now, having this online business is what, like where I want to get, the type of life feeling I want to achieve with making a living online is going back to that year where I was just
Mm,
free. You know, I had time.
right.
I could talk to people in the line in the supermarket. I spent, I could just go, like, you know, sit with a homeless person for an hour and they were petting my dog and I would be, you know, just listening to their life story because no one ever does. And I would do that for
Yeah,
an hour. And I'd had the time and the capacity to do that. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And
don't
then so
now.
you don't know because you're working too much. You're doing so many things. That's why. Too many people are depending on you. That's the problem. No, but that's awesome though. So then, I'm not sure whether you mentioned that just before, but so how did that opportunity of online business came about? Like, I'm not sure if you mentioned that or
No, I
if you
didn't.
said that before. No, you did. Okay, okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
how did that come about?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Because I got into, I was hearing here and there about these people who, you know, live on Cyprus and have their business registered or the other way around. Like it sounded
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
super complicated and super far away. And it was these dudes with sunglasses. And I was like, that is not like, I don't want anything to do with those guys.
Yeah.
But what they were saying about how they make money, I mean,
Mm,
that kind of seems to be a thing. And it was
yeah.
so, it was, there was so much tension for me because I felt and saw and knew how different I was from them, but I felt like I kind of wanted to have that type of I wanted to be there to be able to make an income that way. I had no idea what it
Right.
entailed, but I was like, well, if you can make a living through something that doesn't require you to be in one space and to just the idea, I mean, think of it like you have to ask someone for permission to be able to spend time with, like,
It's
no,
crazy, right?
no,
It's
I don't,
like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So what happened was I was talking to my partner at the time. We had like a life conversation, and then
Yeah,
I was like, he was in a corporate career, and I was like, you know, sharing these ideas and my frustration with it. And then a few days later, he said he found this guy on YouTube, and no, he said he was gonna send me like a link with something, and I thought he was gonna send me a link, but what I
yeah.
didn't realize was that he signed me up to the list because
Oh, shoot,
he
really?
watched Emil's ad, yeah, and then he just
Yeah,
signed me
yeah,
up to.
yeah, yeah.
So I started getting emails from this random person. I had no idea who it was,
Right, right, right.
and then I understood that he had signed me up for his list. So yeah, and then I started getting those emails, and I actually got in touch with him, and it took off from there. It took off from there.
Yeah, it completely changed from there as well, right? Like your perspective
Absolutely.
and like the possibilities now that you can have with that.
Yeah, and it's so
Um,
real. It's so real. Like you can make this happen for yourself. Is that
mm,
really, that was the message, because I knew it was possible. I didn't doubt them that they were actually having that
right,
lifestyle. I don't even
right.
know who it was. It would be funny to look it up now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at what point did you realize that like you can do this for yourself? Like you can actually change your setting, change your life as well, I guess. What was it, what like the message that related to you? You're like, oh, that speaks to me, and I get the pains and now I can do this for myself? Or was it later down the road that you realize, okay, this industry is the future, there's potential in that? Like how did, I guess, the online business for you, how did that become real for like, okay, I can do this
um that's that's a good question. So I think the general answer to that would be it was osmosis. So you know, when you surround yourself with a certain type of idea and
now?
information
Yeah,
and you just hear it often enough, you start believing it.
that's right.
That's what
That's
everybody
right.
does, right?
That's right.
and you can use it to your advantage. And that's kind of, at first it kind of happened. I
Mm-hmm.
just started reading those emails and I signed up to other people's lists, and I was like, you know, it kind of happened, if you believe that things happen.
Yeah.
um but then after a while I realized how, if I actively pursue that type of content, like, it can change the way I see things. And I remember the first, like, self-development book, those books people tell you to read, that I read was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind
Mm-hmm.
by T. Harv Eker.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this very blunt way of stating things,
Mm-hmm.
and that really resonated with me because it was right spot on. Like, there was no pretty wrapping
Yeah,
around it. He was like, if
exactly.
you hate rich people, you're not gonna become rich. Like, look at
Right.
yourself and your beliefs. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even realize how many preconceptions I
Yeah,
had
yeah, yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
wealthy people. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized, no, I actually don't know any super, super rich people personally. So
That's
the
true.
same applies as to everyone else. Who am I to judge them, right?
Exactly.
And if I look back at my life, like just a year ago, literally the like my furniture, my room, my pet, my family is the same, and the rest has changed. Actually, the furniture is going to change too.
That's about to change.
That's about to change. Yeah, it's insane what that can do for you. And for me, really dropping out of college was like the last step, because I didn't want a safety net. I don't do well with plan B. I don't want a plan B. Just want
Mm,
plan A to work. So
interesting.
that's what I'm doing.
Interesting. Yeah, because I mean, I think it's first of all, it's extremely courageous what you've done. Because no, but honestly, because I'm thinking, okay, I'm just trying to put myself in your situation, or even I think if anyone would themselves in your situation, I the intensity of first of all being able to be accepted in a vet school, it's ridiculous. You get that, and then you have like this huge kind of like, especially when you have that setting, you can see your life in front of you, like, okay, that's where I'm going, that's what's going to happen because other people have done it. And couple of a little bit time later, you realize, okay, that's not what I want to do, whatnot. And then having the courage to basically decide to go to another path, that takes extreme courage. It's really difficult, um, to being able to do that, because yeah, again, I mean, you really need to have that self-confidence, and that particular mindset. Uh, and I think that's amazing, honestly. I think that takes a lot of dedication. And so I'm thinking, like, in your journey, because you've saying it's been for about a year now, and I assume it's been a learning curve, because I don't think you've had the background in online digital marketing coming from vet school or whatnot, or maybe you did a little bit of like online marketing for like some vets and whatnot. But how did that, like, more on the personal development and the mindset, um, in the same kind of space that you've decided to, take a decision in some point in your life from vet school to take that path, having this mindset, how did you use that mindset for some of the biggest challenges that you've encountered so far? So I guess my question is two parts, like, what were the challenges, and then,
Hmm.
like, how did you approach them, or how do you think about them? Were you as well kind of like knowing what to do and taking particular decisions and paths or whatnot? How did you manage to overcome those? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh when I get the feedback that I give the impression of knowing exactly what I'm doing, because it doesn't always feel that way to me. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Um, like, so okay, there's a few things. Um, I've had a few realizations in life, if you want to call it
Mm.
that way.
Okay.
Let's see if I don't forget anything.
Go for it.
So one is, ultimately, you're the person living your life. And even if you feel like you're not in control of it, the only way you cannot be in control of your own life is if you give that control to someone else, mostly on an unconscious level.
Yeah.
But acknowledging that even that is of your own making gives it back to you in a way. At least you see it. I'm huge on understanding. You know, one of my core values in life is understanding. So once I understand how something works, and I don't mean obsessing over why did this happen to me, understanding in the sense of you know, how did I get here and what can I, then I can start looking for what can I do to go from here.
Yeah.
The second thing is everything happens for a reason. And often, like, in the end, even if I may not be the reason, I mean, okay, that's a big discussion you can have, you know, if the things you attract into your life and so on. We don't have to go there right now, but everything happens for a reason. And there's two outcomes. There's two different ways something can affect you. First of all, it only affects you if you let it. But there are things that usually would affect us, especially if they're difficult. You lose someone, you go through something hard, painful. We all have had those experiences, and they've all changed us in a way. Even if you don't think that that it changed you, even if you just, you know, push that aside, you still have something now that you pushed aside. So in a way, it has still changed you.
Yeah.
And in my personal experience, those things that are difficult, the more difficult or painful they are, the more you can learn from them. And at one point, I just made a deal with myself to make it to get to that learning part as you know, as soon as I could. Not to, I mean, of course it's important to go through the emotions, and this sounds like I had a really traumatic life, which I didn't. I will, you know, not by some people's standards, but I feel like I just, because I zone in on that kind of thing, like it takes less for me to feel strongly about something happening. So you just go through the emotion and, you know, let that wash out, because if you just stow it away, that's not processing it. But then I start looking for, okay, so what can I take out of this for myself and how can I grow? And there is no exception to that. Like every single thing I've gone at in that way, I've absolutely grown through that, to the point where I say, yes, some things sucked, some things were difficult, but I would never, it only comes together with the package of what I've learned from it. So I would never trade what happened for the lesson that I took out of it. And the whole, like when it got to the point where I was like, okay, so logically, if you look at it logically, I should just drop out of school, like without, put all the emotion and all the attachment aside. And I liked being a student, you know, it's not like, it was like a whole life that changed, not just a profession that I do.
Yeah, sure.
But if you put all that aside, the only reasonable thing to do is to drop out. And then I was like, shoot, like, you know, what did I just say?
I can't believe I said that. I was like, oh my gosh.
yeah, I was like, I can't tell anyone. and then I was like, oh shoot, you know, and then I was like, well, so why don't I? And I realized an interesting thing. And that was, if I at least had a reason to, you know, I was looking to justify it. I was like, okay, if I had like been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer yesterday, people would understand why I would do this crazy thing and change my life. But crap, I don't have stage 4 cancer, you know, so what am I doing? And that was so revealing to myself, because chances are, if I don't change it and I live a life that I don't want to be living, where I have a resistance on a deep level, chances are I will get stage 4 cancer one day from that. And I don't want to dive into this topic extensively either, and I'm not saying it's your own fault if you get cancer. Like
No, of course, of course,
it's
of course.
it's a very broad and diverse topic, but chronic stress is chronic stress and sitting are probably the two, like living a sedentary lifestyle
Absolutely.
are
Yeah,
probably the two main causes of the chronic diseases we have, like the civilization on a civilization level.
that's crazy.
And so basically I was like, okay, so maybe people are going to think I'm crazy now, but if I know that if I make that adjustment here and not here, like there's less of an adjustment to make. Like I don't
Of
know, this
course.
doesn't, there's
No,
less of
no,
an
I get
adjustment
it.
to
Yeah,
make. Yeah, and it's not
yeah.
going to get me there. There's no way I will end up there if I start steering here at this point, you know?
Exactly, exactly.
So that's my well, I don't want to say reasoning because it was really a
Yeah,
gut
no, yeah,
decision. But
yeah,
that's
yeah.
how
I mean,
my perspective on that maybe.
yeah, no, of course. Yeah, it's kind of the perspective and the mindset of taking that decision.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reason why I'm asking is because I came from out of college recently. So I studied philosophy. So I went
Oh,
to the
interesting.
I went to the academic route, and my plan is slash was, it's still kind of confusing, to do like a research master and maybe a PhD. I don't know about that yet, but and so like that's why I find it fascinating, to hear from, because I'm kind of like in this. It seems to be that I'm a bit from in the same kind of setting, kind of, right, like
Mhm.
coming from this academic path and realizing, okay, eventually I'm going to have to go to the job market or something. I'm going to have to, like, unless if I become a researcher, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
There's this other world of online development. I mean, that I'm learning, and I'm like, okay, where can I see Kevin? Where do I see myself in 5 years, and how does that work? And how can I, and what adjustments can I make now for it not to be too big of an adjustment? Because once I commit to something, 3 years from now, I can't be like, all right, I'm out. Like, I'm just gonna do something else. So that's why I was asking the question. But yeah,
That's
that's,
sorry for
yes,
interrupting you, but you
go ahead.
actually just mentioned something that was really important to me also, and that's I've committed to this. You know, like the idea, not just that it's gonna be living a life I never thought, like having an identity that was never something I thought I would ever, you know, have. But it was also, well, I started this and I finished. I'm someone I want to be, and I am someone who finishes what they start. So what do I do? And I feel like, and I've talked to, in that free year, I've talked to so many people of all walks of life, and you could
Yeah.
split them in two groups basically.
Mm,
One was they were not passionate and not aligned with what they're doing, and the other were like super following their heart. You know, I talked to 60-year-olds who were starting a new project in their work, and I talked to people younger than myself, and I was in my
yeah.
early 20s,
Yeah.
who were stuck in something they were studying and really just like not knowing why they were doing it. And that also gave me perspective. And I was like, okay, so my decision at the time to start was absolutely genuine and absolutely right. And I learned a lot from it, you know, just like also the academic stuff, but also the life stuff going through
Of
that.
course.
I learned a lot. And now I'm just at a point where I need to make a new decision. And it just so happens that it doesn't coincide with the curriculum of what I'm studying, because
Mhm.
it wasn't a bachelor and master. It's like you do all 7 years,
Right.
or you
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
don't.
yeah.
So that just didn't coincide. But the the other big thing was I committed to this. How can I
How
not
can I
finish?
finish and quit? Yeah, I know. I have that
Yeah.
problem so much as well. That's why I'm very cautious of, like, what I
Yeah.
commit myself into, just because
Yeah.
it's almost like counterintuitive. I can't give up. That's not me. Like, I have to finish when I start something. So I can certainly relate to that. I can really can. Um, yeah, I mean, so interesting. So many interesting points as well. So I just, yeah, this was not, there's no particular like structure anyway. I was really to kind of dive into your background and to kind of know you more, because we see you see in the SFM community in the background, but we don't really get to know the individuals personally, like on a personal, intimate level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe one more general question, because there are going to be people watching this that know a little bit about SFM, some more than others. Some are doubting, some are trying to see more into what it would look like, and some a bit more further into it. But coming from your background, having been in the community for about a year, and having decided and committed into that pathway, I was just wondering, like, what kind of advice would you give to someone who would be either doubting for that commitment, or to kind of motivate someone to push through this kind of pathway that you've done as well, when you decided? What kind of advice, or what kind of points would you maybe give to that individual?
That's a question I've asked so many people already.
Oh, you've asked people.
And I'm just, yeah. And now I have to answer it myself. No, it makes a lot of sense to ask that question. Yeah.
Just coming from your, like, it's just pure personal. It's like, okay, you made a decision from vet school to take this path. You had a certain commitment, a certain motivation, something related to you. You saw something into it. And there's a lot of people in this situation, and I'm going to be honest, like, I was in that situation, and I'm kind of still am, because, there's other things that I would like to do within the community. But then again, it's the same question, right, Kevin? Like, where are you right now? How committed are you? So it's these questions that I'm personally dealing with quite often. And it's always nice to have someone to talk to, so that I can relate with. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, like, what would you say to that?
Well, if I'm super honest, I'm also in that situation, and I don't think I ever will get out of it, because commitment is a decision you make every day. You have those big goals and those big things you commit to, and you do that once, but deciding to stick with that commitment is a decision you make every day. What time you wake up, how you spend your time, what you prioritize, what you start working on in the morning, what you leave to the afternoon, what you agree, how you agree to spend your time, what you say no to, what you say yes to. All those things together are a commitment. And the ultimate commitment is, in, like, the way I see it, is to myself and to becoming the best possible version of myself in these few years I have on this earth. Yeah. So yeah, that would be the filter. I would like to say I always run everything through, but no one is perfect. No one always gets it right. I have days that are like, I'm just like, whoa, good thing I hope there's going to be a tomorrow, and then I have days that are absolutely amazing. And not being hard on yourself for when you feel that you didn't do well with committing to yourself. I mean, that's just part of it. We're so hard on ourselves. Like, no one would ever expect that of anyone else, what you expect of yourself. At least I do. So yeah, kind of going easy on yourself. And once you do that, you will enjoy committing to yourself more, because it's someone you actually want to commit to, if that makes sense. Like, if you start liking yourself, you're gonna start.
Oh yeah, you want to keep doing it every day,
Yeah, you want to hang out with them.
Hang out with yourself, yo.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's self-love is a huge, like, I think self-love is like the foundation of any success, like any.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And that's so hard most of the time. I mean,
yeah, but why?
I don't know. It's you just keep comparing ourselves all the time, and you just, for some dumb reasons, and it's just like, everyone has their own journey. I mean, I know I tend to do that often. I'm like, why would I do that? They're not me, and I'm not them. Like, yes, they're doing this, but, like, everyone has their own journey. And like you say, take these small commitments. And I think that's really helpful advice, actually. To, like, these commitments will actually have to be like a daily reminder of like, hey, what time are you waking up? How invested are you today? How productive were you? And that's small. I think that helps people like us, I guess, or people who are just kind of like trying to do this, get into community or start with SFM, is to kind of have these daily commitments, right? As
Yeah,
opposed to saying, I'm super
absolutely.
committed, I'm going to change my life and I'm going to make, $100,000 a year. Like, no, like, how predictable are you today about this, right? Like,
You need to break it down, because making $100,000 a year is like, yeah, that can be your goal for next year if you want it to be, but the only way you're going to get there is if you do something every day, and you need to know what it is you're committing to every day, because you can have all the big goals you want, but if you have no way of holding yourself accountable, like, you're not going to wake up one day and be there.
no.
And also another thing, about just real quickly about the comparing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually, and people in SFM and not just in SFM that talk about that too. There's like a hack through that. So instead
Tell
of
me.
comparing yourself to others and what they've done, because you will never truly know another person. It's kind of what I mentioned. I think that was before we started the
Yeah.
interview about what was it we were talking about? Yeah, that no one ever has everything figured out, and if they
Right.
do, if it seems like that to you, it's either that you don't really know them, which you probably don't, or that you only just see them operating in that thing where they are a few steps ahead of you. That's all
Mm-hmm.
it is. No one has
Mm-hmm.
everything figured out,
That's
and
true.
you do, but you don't know how bad other people don't not do. So you know
Right.
your own shortcomings, but you don't know anyone else's shortcomings as well as you know your own. And what has really helped me in really like tough times was to sit down. I was feeling super bad about myself. I had all reason to, things had happened, whatever. And then I just sat down and I was like, okay, let me just make an inventory of my life right now. And I did
Mm-hmm.
that, and I realized how things that were unimaginably far away just a few years ago were my reality today, and maybe was part of why I was feeling bad now, because I was just totally, stop being grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and I was like, oh my God, like if I were to talk to Clara 5 years ago, I would be her
Yeah.
hero today. So, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
compare yourself to yourself in the future. Yes, do that. Have goals for yourself and have that drive to become your better, the 2.0 or 5.0 or 8.0 version of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for the momentum to go there, also don't forget, like, look at where you've come from, because that's something
Mm.
that has happened already, and that
Mm.
you were there. Everyone has a past version of themselves.
Of course. That's
Leverage
I,
that.
yeah. No, that's so interesting because we never do that, do we? We never
Yeah.
compare ourselves in the past.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I loved what you said about always trying to be the best version of yourself, and reminding like there's more. And, like that is so true because it was a conversation that I had with a friend, just to finish that. I don't want to extend it too much, but yeah, I just had a conversation with someone just about that fact that the only thing that we can actually control, because in all of our situations, there's external things, effects that we cannot control. We just can't have
Mm-hmm.
control on that. But what we can control is two things. Like, let's say you make a mistake, or you bump into something, or you can't wrap your head around something. Like, take the responsibilities, right? Like, acknowledge that what you mentioned. And the other thing that you
Yeah.
can control is like the constant variable of amelioration. You can
Mm.
decide today, right now, make a conscious decision of actually wanting to be better than you were the day before,
Yeah.
right? Because you have that in you. And that's when you said
Mm.
like, I am trying to be, or I want to be the best version of myself, and I'm striving to that. I'm like, that's it. Like, she said it. That's so true. And then that is something that I'm really trying to learn, is to be the best version of myself, for the time I'm around. So
Me too.
awesome.
It's an everyday thing. And the cool part is you get the chance to do that every day. If you can, I've actually heard someone talk about this. They did like a checklist of a few
Hmm.
points, and
Hmm.
then they were like, okay, So they're going to rate themselves at the end of each day. You know, how much in
Oh,
integrity was I
really?
with myself?
That's
How many
pretty cool.
difficult situations? Like, yeah.
Really?
And then they were like, okay, if there was a week where I got 1 or 2 stars on this, like that's going to push me to do better next week or next day. Just
Wow.
find whatever it is that works for you. But as long, even if you like really have messed up and are starting over and you want to get back into a daily routine, whatever it is, the best part to start that was, of course, yesterday or a year ago or, you know, whatever time in life. But the next best is like right now. And you can either be frustrated about that now, or now you can, you know, get back into that. So you have that chance every day. That's the beauty of life. Like, you know, as long as
That's
you have
true.
a tomorrow, you'll always have a chance to improve.
That's it. That's it right there. That's a quote right there. Clara Carpio said it first. She said it. She said it on this call. This is the one. It started here, guys. Take it. What are we? November 14th at 4:15. All right. That's where she said it. So in the future, people know it was on this call when the success started. Awesome. I mean,
We're gonna watch this back 5 years and
oh, we're gonna watch this like when you go
we're
to a
gonna
talk show
watch this
host
thing.
and you get interviewed, you remember me, like it was on the call with this
It
guy.
was that guy.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Oh,
Clara, thank you so much, honestly, for this time. It's been
you're
awesome.
most welcome.
It's
You're
been
most
absolutely amazing. I've gained so much from this call, honestly. I'm gonna rewatch this and write some stuff down, use it, apply it, because it's really valuable. It really is, and I think a lot of people watching this would definitely benefit from this, for sure, for sure.
awesome. That's good.
Amazing.
I did
Cool,
too. So
cool. Amazing. Beautiful. So I'm going to have to run. But thank you again so much. We'll definitely keep in touch. And yeah, till next time.
till next time.